Hello everyone. We're going to be talking about the Studio XL today. I am really surprised of how little coverage there is on this thing. I looked up on YouTube and on review sites that I usually go to, and there's nothing on this thing. It shocked me, and so I thought I should do this myself and make a review of this thing. Um, Behringer provides a manual for this thing, or at least a quick start guide, and I have it here right here with me. But the problem with this thing is that it doesn't tell you much. It tells you like what each individual thing is in a small sentence, but other than that, it doesn't tell you why you should do that, why you should use it that way. So it's kind of like a lot of unknowns around this device. I bought it blind, to be honest with you. And I was hoping it would accomplish what I wanted it to, and it seems like for the most part it did. So this is kind of a review slash in-depth walkthrough of the features of this device, at least the things that are not covered on the site. I'll go through some overlap here and there, but for the most part, I'm going to try to go through the signal flow and how this thing is set up out of the factory. Um, there's not much customization here, so most of the things that you'll see are going to be as is. Like you can turn off a channel here and there on the headphones, for example, but for the most part, things are the way they are, and that you can't really change them. Okay, so let's get started. You are now listening to me through the Studio XL. I am going through channel 1 with my microphone. The microphone I'm using is I think it's an XM8500 or something like that from Behringer as well. So you can kind of tell like what the quality is for their own devices on their own interfaces. The mic preamps, I'm not a big fan. I might be a defective unit, might not be, but there is like little room to play. You get zero gain up until 90% of the knob, and then at that point is when you start uh, getting some good amount to actually hear yourself. I have used a different interface in the past from Behringer as well, the UMC 404 HD, to with this microphone setup, and it was working great. But with this unit, it's not the greatest. So I have to excuse any background noise. I have the gain knob set up a little higher than I usually do, mainly because of how sensitive this mic preamp is. Okay, so we can go through inputs and outputs and whatnot on this device, kind of like what they show on the site, just to talk over them. Some of you might have not even heard of this device, so I'm gonna walk you through it real quick. But it's made to around studios and people who have potentially two rooms. They have like a quiet room where they can put their artists and vocalists inside, and then to communicate with them, they have a talkback feature, um, as well as three options for monitoring for your speakers. So that's a great feature right there. So let's go through the inputs and outputs, and I'm going to pull up their site. I have the unit right here with me, but I don't want to move it around because I have this set up with a camera and whatnot. So excuse that real quick. All right, so let's pull this up. I shall switch to this. Okay, so in terms of inputs and outputs, let me pull up the picture. I believe it's right here. All right, cool. So in terms of inputs and outputs, you get two mic preamps, two channel. I'm using one right now, number one for my microphone, and number two is being used for the guitar input. I'm going to demonstrate that in a bit to show you what the gain is like on the preamps. You get 3 and 4, just a TRS input, as well as 5 and 6. You also get a Q in. I'm going to explain what this is later. So those are pretty much your only options for input. Then you go to the outputs. You have a lot more outputs here than you could ever know what to do with. Basically, you have monitor A, monitor B, monitor C. Then you have a studio or a phone's amplifier output, also left and right, and a 2-track output. So this output's the thing that goes to 2 tracks. I'll explain what that is later. Actually, there's one more input here. There's a talkback microphone. There's one built into the unit. You can use that instead. Or you can have one external like this with a foot switch activation. So you can turn it off and on based on that. Then you have USB. With the USB, you have 2 inputs and 4 outputs. Now, I know it's weird. I thought it was going to be 4 outputs, 4 inputs. Kind of like, what do you expect? But in this case, it's only 2. So at least for the inputs, 2 inputs, 4 outputs. So you get input 1 and 2 through USB, and then you get 4 outputs. Output 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'll explain what that does in terms of routing. How does that work? How does 3 and 4 work when it comes to the track? I'll explain that in a bit. I drew a whole diagram for you guys, and I'll go through it. So with the USB, we'll walk through this in a bit. Let's walk through some more stuff about the unit itself. I have it right here, so you can see my hand. It's an actual unit. I was able to get it, I think, early than usual. And yeah, you get to each one of your inputs has its own light switch or like button that activates it. So this is the USB output. This is 5 and 6, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, and then for monitoring, you get stereo monitoring or mono, depends on what you like more. I personally like mono more because I only use one input for the microphone. So if you turn it to stereo, then the microphone will come. Input 1 will come on the left side of the headphones, and then input 2 will be on the right side. You also get 48 volts if you have a microphone that requires phantom power. Okay. In terms of outputs, you have 3 monitor outputs here, and they have their own switches as well, so you can individually turn them off and on, up to you. There's the talkback microphone buttons, so these are what you use to, like, these are, you press them down to talk. Then you have a dim, mute, mono button, as well as buttons for changing the output that's going out to the headphones. So those are the other outputs that I didn't cover really, that weren't part of the picture, but you get 2 headphone outputs up front. And I will walk through all that with you. All right, so I guess now that we're here, let's talk about the outputs. Let's talk about the signal chain and how it's set up with this thing. When I grabbed it, I was really confused. The manual that they provide is really not a manual. Like I said, it's just a description of what the things are in like plain English and small sentences. So it's really hard to understand what it's for and how it's being used in the unit. So let's walk through that real quick. So what I have here is a diagram that I made. Make sure you can see this. You might want to zoom in here. If you're using YouTube, make sure you go on full screen. But I have mapped out, these are the inputs, right? You've got input 1 and 2. This is the microphone I'm using right now, input 1. Input 2 is what I'm using for the guitar. 3 and 4, 5 and 6. Then you have the USB inputs, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. These are the USB inputs to the unit, so that means those are the USB outputs from your computer. So like I said, you have 4 outputs, 2 inputs. In this case, those are really USB in for the unit, like I said, and USB output for your computer. So I'm using them in that terminology, so it's kind of like reversed for this diagram, but trust me, it'll make sense. You have a Q in. That's what the TRS connector in the back is for. So that's this guy right here. And then you have the talkback microphone. I'm not going to cover this too much. I don't really use that feature, but I'll talk a bit more about its activation. Okay, so this is how I have noticed. This is all information that I came up with myself through testing. This is not provided by Behringer, so if any of you know anything, if you spot any mistakes, please correct them, post them in the comments. I would love to know more about this unit as much as the next guy, so just let me know, and I'll post any corrections that I see. But basically, the main inputs that you see here, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the USB, have their own switches, like I said, right? So if I turn the camera back on, I don't know why this keeps turning off and on. You can see those switches right here. So those are the switches that I drew right here. So each one has its own switch. What I think happens, and this is what I've noticed is true with how it behaves, is that this goes into a bus. I'm calling it the enabled inputs bus. So everything that you turn on will end up in this bus, mixed together. Now from there, it gets split into 2 buses. One is the Q bus, the other one is a 2-track bus. So let's walk through the 2-track because that's a bit simpler than the Q bus. So we'll cover the Q bus in a few. But so the enabled inputs bus goes directly through this line to the 2-track bus. So everything you enable will go to the 2-track bus. So that's including USB 5.6, 3.4, 1.2. Goes all of it just goes directly to 2-track bus. Then this guy will get split into multiple outputs. So in this case, monitor A, B, and C get the 2-track bus, regardless of how you configure the unit. As far as I know, I was never able to change that. So you can't have the monitor A, B, or C, like one of them do Q, one of them do the 2-track. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It seems like that's not the case. I've tried my best to get it to output the Q to one of the monitors, but that wasn't a possibility. So 2-track goes directly to the monitors. It also goes directly to the studio amp output. That's the output in the background here. You can see it down here. Then it goes also directly to a 2-track output. Obviously, it's a 2-track bus, so it goes to the 2-track output, and that's this guy right here. Then this is where it gets interesting. The headphones output, the ones in the front. So I'm going to zoom in here. The blue line is the 2-track. The yellow line is the Q. And you basically get to switch between them. So you can kind of like switch the 2-track. You can switch the headphones to either show the 2-track or play the 2-track track or the Q track. Same thing with the headphones number 2. For the USB, which is the thing that's most complicated about the 2-track bus here, you have an option. The USB out, which is the USB input into your computer. So remember the 2 that I said? There's only 2 of those. You get the option of having either in 102 directly into the computer. So that's what I'm doing right now. That's how you're hearing my voice. Input 1 and 2 are going directly into the computer through USB. And that's what I'm recording right now. Or there's a switch in the back. Let me show you where that is. This guy right here. That will switch the inputs 1 and 2 to become the 2-track output into your from the unit to your computer. So the two inputs that are going into your computer now through USB become 2-track outputs. So basically, you can then mix all the different enabled inputs onto your unit and then output those to your DAW or to your whatever you're recording with, and do it that way if you like. I think this is useful if you're a streamer and you would like to have your microphone being piped to the 2-track, as well as like an echo device or something like that to talk during the stream. I can see a lot of use cases where that's really nice to use. I'm not going to use it as often for me personally, but it's good to have that option there. Okay, so that's the 2-track bus. There's not much more to this, the 2-track bus. Let me show you a little demo of the 2-track bus here. So I'm going to switch to that input. Here you should be able to still hear me. So I just switched to that. Let me turn the camera back on. Okay, so right here you can see I'm mixing 3, 4, 5, 6 and USB to the 2-track, which means if I go ahead and play a sound, this might be loud. I'm sorry if you're using headphones. You can see this is coming from my computer. This is the Windows volume indicator. It's going out of my computer into this thing through USB. And so that's basically, let me go up here. That's USB in 1 and 2 being sent through here. It's enabled here. And then it's being sent to the enable input bus, and then to the 2-track bus, and then being piped straight out into the 2-track output, which is what I'm using to record that sound. Okay, so that's from the computer. I can also have 5 and 6, which I have an echo connected here. So if you want, you can ask her to play something. So I'm going to pull up Spotify real quick and play something through the echo. Again, it might be loud, so just warning. Let's see. Let's do something copyright free. I think this is. I'm not really sure. Let's just select the PC room dot and volume down. So that right now should be. Oh, let me switch it. Okay. So now this is going through the echo, but you should still be able to hear it. So this is going through the 2-track. It's enabled through here. I can turn it off. So if I do this, you no longer hear it, right? So that's kind of like what I'm explaining here. This is 5 and 6. This switch turns it off. It no longer goes to the bus, and therefore it's off. But I can turn it back on, and it comes back on. All right, cool. So that's the 2-track bus. Simple stuff. Now, the Q bus is where it gets complicated. All right, so the Q bus is mainly made to go through the headphones, and that's it. Unfortunately, there is a Q bus input to add more stuff to it, but it won't leave your unit unless it's going through the headphones output. So the only way to listen to the Q bus is if you were to, let me top front, if you were to plug something in here and then enable this switch to be pressed down to the Q. Okay, so let's go through this one more time for the Q bus situation. Everything still goes to the enabled inputs bus, just like usual. Then you leave the enabled inputs bus. You go into one option is a 2-track. We're not going to cover that. We already did that. Then you have the other option, which is, they call it source on the unit, and that is this selector switch right here. So if I pull this up in the image, you can see it right there. It's a 3-way selector switch, and it determines your Q source. So in this case, we have source, which is the enabled inputs bus, which is what I was talking about. This is kind of like a mixer they have in the unit built into it that you're utilizing for both the Q bus and the 2-track bus if you select the source input for the Q bus, or the Q source being the source. I'm not sure why they named it that. They could have just called it like enabled inputs or something like that, because source doesn't really make sense. Like, what does that mean? So it's a bit confusing. Or, so that goes to your Q bus. Or if you don't want that option, the other input sources for your Q bus are USB 3 and 4. So that's 3 and 4 right here. That means in your computer's output, you select 3 and 4, and that's how you get that. So I'm gonna move this up a little bit so you can see the Windows diagrams as well. If I go up here, and then change mine to Studio XL 3 and 4. Select the Q scene. Oh, sorry. Let me move this back up again. So now you're hearing my voice directly, as well as the Q bus. You should be able to hear the Q bus now. So let me do the same thing. I'm going to select 3 and 4 from here, Studio XL. And I will switch the selector switch to say USB 3 and 4. Now, whatever I play through that 3 and 4 should be going through to you in the Q bus. So you should be able to hear it. It might be loud. Again, I'm sorry for that. And I do see that it's going to the, it's clipping a little bit. I should have probably warned you, but yeah, I'll try to do that next time. But yeah, so that's going through the Q bus. I don't hear it in my headphones because I am no longer using output 1 and 2. That's what my headphones are monitoring. And but it is going to you, to the Q bus, then leaving the unit and being recorded. So let me switch it back to 1 and 2. Cool. So that's the USB 3 and 4 source. So whatever you output through USB 3 and 4 from your computer will be used as the Q source. That way you can play backing tracks. You can do whatever you want in the studio through your computer, and then output that sound through to whoever's listening to the headphones. So I can see that as being useful if you have like in your DAW you have like a cool track setup, and you have just the simple chords, so that's not too busy, and the click beat or click track, so you can just have your singer sing along with it without all the other noise. So that's really useful. Now, the other source for the Q bus is the aux mix, and actually, let me show you what that is. So if you follow this line, it goes all the way back to the Q in. I don't know why they're calling it aux mix, because I don't think it's mentioned in the back that this is. It might be actually. Let me check it real quick. Oh, it is. It is. Okay. Yeah. So, but this is the input for that. So it's simple. You just put something in there, and it will go through the queue. Um, if you have a rack unit that's doing some of the processing for you, and you want to send that input to the headphones for some reason, this is how you do it. Of course, you can go through USB, or you can plug into 5 and 6 or whatever, and then select source. It's up to you, but you have an option to output something to Docsmix. I don't think I have anything plugged in there right now to demonstrate that, unfortunately, but it is an option to have if you want it. Let me switch back to source here. Cool. So that's the inputs to the Q bus. Now, the outputs from the Q bus. So this is, it gets a little bit more complicated, but we'll get there. We'll get through this. The outputs from the Q bus then goes into this mixer, the monitor mixer. So what you have here, down here, is a direct monitoring knob or potentiometer. You turn it one way to hear only the inputs. You turn it the other way and you hear the Q. So what do I mean by inputs? The inputs are the raw inputs, like literally input 1 and 2, and that's it. So if I go back here, select this line, you will see that only 1 and 2 are being piped to this potentiometer as the direct monitoring mix. If I go into the picture, you can see this in more in depth. So you can see the inputs right here and the Q right here. So if you push it this way, you will only hear yourself, the microphone and the input number 2. If you push it the other way, you'll hear only the Q bus output. So whatever is coming out of the Q bus, that will go through there. You can kind of mix and match between them depending on your preference, but it's up to you what you want to do with this. The output from this is then taken and split into a couple of outputs, but it's mostly the same, just 2 headphones. And I put Q in quotes because it's really not just the Q bus anymore. It's the Q plus the monitoring mix from inputs 1 and 2. Depends on how you have it set up. So to demonstrate this, what I'm going to do, you're still hearing the outputs through the headphones. What I'm hearing in the headphones right now, you're hearing the same thing while I'm recording right now, currently. So if I go ahead and start messing with the knob, you should start hearing me twice. One through the recording of the software, and the other one through the direct hardware monitoring that this unit has. So I'm going to start spinning it the other way, and you should be able to hear input 1 as well as, so it'll be my voice, and then my voice again through USB, which is the only thing that you're hearing right now. So okay, here we go. So right now I'm talking, and you should be able to hear me twice. I'm going to enable this as well so you can hear what you're hearing. Yeah, so you probably hear me twice. If I go all the way over here, you should start hearing me once again, just one time, but a bit louder because the Q bus the inputs are being directly monitored and the Q bus is no longer involved in this mix. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back up to the max so you don't hear me twice. Again, with this camera turning off, not sure what's going on. Cool. Just a quick correction in post. Instead of twice, it's actually 3 times. So when I put it in the center, you're hearing the USB, you're hearing the Q bus, you're also hearing the inputs being mixed in. So when I went all the way to the left to the inputs bus, you heard me twice still because the inputs were being monitored as well as the USBs being recorded. I made a mistake with the recording, but it is the technical routing should be the same. It's just that I was recording USB this entire time, and so you heard me 3 times, then 2 times, and that's why you heard me twice, even when I was all the way to the left. Thank you. So, yeah, and then for each, like I said, you can select between 2-track or Q for the headphones. But yeah, that's about it for the routing of the unit. As far as I know, these are the only options. What I would have loved to see is the Q bus being more flexible in what it goes. I would have loved to, one, either dedicate a monitor output for it or something like that. Or what would be amazing, what would be even better, is if they can have monitor A be switchable between Q or 2-track. That would have been incredible for my use case. I would love to plug in a looper pedal or something like that through this unit. I know this is not what it's made for, but it would be nice to have that option. The other option that surprised me is the fact that only inputs 1 and 2 are being sent through USB, unless you want to also send the whole 2-track output to USB. This kind of threw me off. I thought it would be a 4 input 4 output unit, but that's not the case. It's only 2 inputs and then 4 outputs. But yeah, in terms of build quality, the unit is nice. Some knobs, I would say, are questionable. These 2 up top, the trim knobs up here, have a center point, so you can kind of like here, kind of sit nicely in them. Same with this one. Kind of snap. These feel really nice. The gain knobs on the microphones feel like crap. And let me demonstrate what I mean by that. Okay, so now I'm going to record input 1 and 2. Input 1 being my voice, input 2 being the guitar. I want to give you an idea of how much headroom we have with the gain knobs on this unit. So bear with me here. This is a Fender Stratocaster. I'm going to be strumming a G chord. It's a single coil guitar, but the ones that I have, the single coils I have, are pretty hot. I'm going to be using neck pickup. Now the next part, this part is going to be very, very loud. So I'd advise you, if you're using headphones, to put the volume down. I'm not going to change the volume in post. So this is it. Okay, you ready? What I'm talking about is the gain knob, the second gain knob. So this one right here. Okay, so this is 3/4 of the way in. I'm going to strum a G chord. This is what it sounds like. Okay, now I'm going to strum it, adjust it, and then strum again. Okay, this is around halfway. This is around 1/4 of the way. And now we're back to 3/4. Now, beyond this point is when it gets interesting. This gain knob gives it a lot more output when it comes to that region. So after 3/4, I'm not sure what they do in the background, but they give it some kind of boost. So I don't think with this unit you'll need something like a cloud lifter or a dynamite to provide ample output from a low output microphone. But yeah, this is what it's going to sound like. I'm just going to strum a G chord, but it's going to be very, very loud. Just be careful. See that we're barely clipping here. We're barely going into the red, but I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm completely clipping here with the guitar. It's like I barely moved the thing. This is the further. It can go even further. And then this is the max. Alright, so not the biggest fan of those, but they get the job done, I guess. That's the guitar demo. I believe both inputs have the same exact output setup, same exact preamp. So they should have the same amount of output. The last thing I want to cover is the 2-track, the talkback functionality. So you've got 2 buttons here. The Q button. This will send your talkback signal to the Q bus. So let me switch to that real quick. Alright, so now we're on the Q bus. I believe you should be able to hear me twice. If I hit this, it will enable the talkback microphone that's built into the unit right here, and I'll talk through it. Okay, so I'm talking through the talkback microphone. You might be hearing me more than once, but that's just how it is. Awesome. This camera kept turning off, so sorry about that. But yeah, I'm going to try it again just to demonstrate. I think the camera turned off. Okay, I'm using the talkback functionality on the Q bus. okay, let me switch away from that. That way you're not. Cool. So the last thing um, is the 2-track talkback. This guy only gets sent to the 2-track outputs in the back. I don't know if you remember those, but those are these two things. As far as I could tell, these are the only things that get that talkback functionality. You won't actually get it on the 2-track bus, so it's kind of like there's some naming inconsistencies going on here with Behringer. Like if it says 2-track, you should at least have it play on all 2-track outputs, but it could be a nice option for people who want more flexibility, I guess, on where their talkback goes. But yeah, so it only goes on the 2-track output. I can show you that as well because I have that connected. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to switch to the 2-track scene. So now we're on the 2-track scene, I believe. So okay, I'm going to play through it. You'll be able to hear me twice. Again. All right, here we go. I am now talking on the 2-track talkback microphone output, and this is what it sounds like. Cool. That's really all I had for the purposes of this demo. So please, if I said anything wrong, if you know something in more details, if you want to contribute, just leave a comment. I did this mainly because I want to explore my options, and the best way to get it out there is to post something on the internet and have somebody correct you. So please let me know if you have any questions, if you want me to walk through anything in more depth. If, like I said, if there's any inconsistencies or I said something wrong with, if there's something you want to suggest for the diagram, please let me know. And if you want the diagram to be posted, also let me know. I'll post a link to that if any of you show interest in that. So thank you so much. Take care. Bye.